In this work, we have found that unless the heart cooperates, the brain does not seem to be getting the right kind of signals and not entering the right states of consciousness. And it has to do a lot with the physical heart itself. And we found unless the relationships are set right, the physical heart just does not cooperate. So the 21 days, for example, when we very often find a person not progressing, we take him out of the process, do what we call a Samskara Shuddhi on him. It is mainly setting right his relationships. And then once that has been set right, we see the heart is sending a different kind of signal and the person is able to get the states. So that was how we realized it is so important to set right relationships. Otherwise, the heart is just not cooperating. And without the heart, you can achieve very little. Samskara Shuddhi is cleansing of your conditioning. Samskaras means conditioning. Shuddhi means cleansing. So we acquire a lot of conditioning over the years. And this could sometimes be a hindrance to your growth or progress. So we have a way of erasing the samskaras or the conditioning. And then you continue to make progress. The Deeksha can be given, and strangely the person discovers love and relationship, and the sense of separateness is gone. There's a freedom from the past, and he doesn't get hurt any longer, and he begins to enjoy that relationship. The emergency first aid I would give is teach them the art of listening to see what's happening inside them, and start this process and then receive the Deeksha. Then Deeksha takes you to the very end of the story that is being revealed to you all the time. And once you have listened to the story, the relationship is automatically set right. Because very often you have not listened to the story which is playing with your relationship. And if you give it a hearing to the very end, then the story stops and the relationship naturally falls into order. It's not exactly thoughts, but we carry a lot of stories within us. And these stories manipulate and control relationship. And all that they need is they have to be listened to. Strangely, once they have been listened to, they lose all charge. They no more interfere with you. But people hardly listen to that. The Deeksha helps you in listening to the story. And once it has expressed itself, the hold is gone. And without that hold, the relationship very naturally falls into order. The person looks very different. I have had examples of people come and complain to me saying, we want to divorce our wives. And now I have asked them, why did you marry her in the first instance? And they say, no, we married for money. Because in India, you get a lot of money in the form of what they call dowry, So then I said, but then you can't give her up right now because you've taken the money. Yes, but then I really don't like her. I don't like her face, I don't like her complexion, I don't like her teeth. Now, once they have listened to the story and they have undergone the process, the same person falls in love with her. And the relationship is set right. This happens almost every day. Well, we could develop these skills and they would certainly be very helpful. But the Deeksha acts in a very special way. What the Deeksha does is, instead of trying to help you to understand the other, it helps you to experience the other. The moment you start experiencing the other, it does not matter who the other is. Because anything when experienced is nothing but joy. So a quarrel could actually become a source of joy. Anger could become a source of joy. So the entire thing gets converted. Now, through no technique is this possible. Deeksha alone is capable of doing that. And the other thing is the Deeksha can often swing between bird's eye view and a worm's eye view. It's like using the Google to see the planet and then zooming down. No? So these views keep alternating. You see that the world is in conflict, there's so much suffering and pain as a third party, as a witness, and suddenly you zoom down to your own relationship with your wife. Then again you go back to the global point of view. When this repeats 3 or 4 times, you become completely detached and you begin to enjoy that same relationship without bringing about any change in that relationship. What happens in this Deeksha process is you still get angry, but I really do not know how to convey that. This is an anger which has no anger. There is an understanding where there is no understanding. So strangely, all things continue, but they have lost the sting, You can get very angry with your spouse, but the other person does not feel the anger. And there's really no anger in your anger, Similarly, you no more try to understand her in terms of psychology or philosophy, But there is an understanding which we really cannot call understanding. So we might say it's an understanding without understanding, It's something very strange. So all things are normal, but somehow the core is missing. And relationship becomes very beautiful when there's anger. The couples actually enjoy that anger, Very often the wife admires the husband's anger, the husband the wife's anger. That's how it happens. Not that they're free of anger. Anger still continues, but it has become very enjoyable. But somehow we have found it more easy to communicate with the Indian people. We have had some difficulty with the Western people in exactly communicating what's happening. But of late we find they're also getting a hang of it. Because we are not trying to change the behavior, Suppose you have a nagging wife, we say, let her continue to nag you. There's no problem with it. That in fact is the beauty about her. And if you are a husband who's a stickler to discipline and who keeps laying down rules and regulations, continue to be with that, because that's what is most suitable to you. But the other person learns to enjoy that. So we do not aim to effect any changes in the behavioral patterns, but only changes with regard to the way you experience it. That's what the Deeksha aims at.
Content, is that correct?
Exactly that.
And so Deeksha relaxes our resistance to what is occurring.
It's not that you're free of anger, but you're made friends with anger. You go along with it, you have no more problems with it. It's not that you have stopped being jealous, but you're very comfortable with being jealous. You accept it totally. So there's no change in the content. It's only in your approach to the content that there's a radical shift. Yeah, that doesn't happen. Once you made friends with your anger or your jealousy and you express it, it does not hurt the other at all.
I see.
The other is quite contented with relating to it. Is in fact happy with it.
Maybe because it has no more charge behind it.
There's no charge behind it.
Yes.
This jealousy is a natural feeling, which as you said is wired into the system. But the thing is, you could experience jealousy itself. When you start experiencing jealousy itself, it becomes a very enjoyable experience. So we are not talking about being free of jealousy here. We are only talking of enjoying jealousy. That's what Deeksha is all about. So you are very natural. You are jealous. You are very concerned when your wife is going along with somebody else. But strangely, even that can be enjoyed. And the Deeksha takes you to such a level, what I call the bird's eye view. When you take the worm's eye view, jealousy causes pain. But when you take the bird's eye view, the same jealousy gives you joy. So much so that it is as though jealousy has disappeared. That's what happens. What actually happens is, like you could have in your drawing room a $1 million painting of a woman in grief. Now you enjoy that painting because you are not that woman in grief, and it costs $1 million to buy that painting, and you hang it in your living room. Something similar is happening here. When I talk of bird's eye view, you are moving out of the situation and looking at it as though you're a third person. When that happens, your own jealousy, your own grief is like that painting, which you start admiring. And this is what we call witnessing, and or the bird's eye view. In this stage, anything that happens just gives you joy. There's no place for suffering there. On the other hand, if you get involved, even a joy situation can bring about pain. So this is all about getting out of the situation and looking at it. Yes, exactly that. This is what we also call oneness, because when this happens, you see the suffering of mankind. You see their suffering all over the world, and you become so aware of it, and your own personal suffering is just a small speck in that, and it ceases to be personal. So when I talk of freedom from suffering, I'm only talking of freedom from suffering as personal suffering, not suffering as such.
So you can still feel the pain of the world and still feel compassion.
Yes, you could feel that. Now, my own mother died on my lap. So, but then there was no personal suffering. But there was suffering, but it was not personal. I felt suffering because I could see she did not want to go.
So you felt her suffering?
Yes.
Then?
And there were others around who didn't want her to leave them. So they were all suffering. So that did affect me, but not as a person. Not that it was my mother who was passing away. It didn't affect me that way. But of course, I helped her out, and then she finally passed away very joyfully. So it's a question of shifting your stance from being involved to being a witness.
How old were you when your mother died, Bhagavan?
That must have been 5 years ago. I must have been 52, I think.
Oh, I didn't ask you. Now you've told me how old you are now. I didn't know.
I'm 57 now.
You're kind of timeless as well. That's how I feel you. So when your mother died, for you there was no grasping or grieving?
No, it wasn't there. Because it was not my mother, That kind of stand was not there, I see a beautiful being who has helped me so much passing away, and I know where she's going also. So in a sense, I am happy. But I see the others in tremendous grief. That is affecting me again. Yes. It's as though that that is the foundation for all relationships. Now, let's say you had a bad relationship with your father. It's likely to affect your relationship with your boss, or sometimes with your co-workers, or even with your spouse. So it's as though it is the basic relationship which affects all other relationships. So that is why we have found that once we have set this right, every other relationship seems to fall into order. So you come and complain to me about a problem with your boss or your spouse or some other friend of yours. I avoid all those things, but I go straight to the father and the mother, and this naturally becomes all right. So you just work on these two and everything is over. Yes, in effect what we have found is, if the relationship with the father is not so good, it generally manifests as financial problems. And great difficulties with the material world. And with the mother, you seem to encounter needless problems, things get delayed, and relationships break down. So it manifests very differently. That's why we focus both on the mother and the father.
So for really good success on Wall Street, people should attend to their relationship with father. Okay.
When Indian businessmen come to us and say, our businesses are not doing well, we basically look at the father's relationship for the financials to turn around. And if the business is not progressing well, we look at the relationship with the mother. And 3 or 4 months later, the picture has changed. So we have probably thousands of examples to show it's really working, even for big companies.
Yeah. But what about if your mother or father is already dead? Then what can you do?
It doesn't matter at all. You still start relating to the dead parent. So it's not important the person should be alive or dead. You just get those memories back and you work on that.
So you can clear the relationship within yourself,
within yourself, yes.
I see.
But in India, of course, we do make them meet their dead parents also. It's more like meeting them physically. But we have not done that with the Westerners so far. But with Indians, we have done that. Because in India, they believe in past lives and rebirth, and that you have other lokas where you can meet them, you know. So they're very comfortable with meeting their dead parents. We have no clear idea how a Westerner would feel talking to his dead parents. So we believe that ultimately the Deeksha would lead to what we call oneness. That is, you would lose the sense of separation, and that people would feel like as though they all belong to the same family. So we believe the world would become one global family. We see that as the ultimate happening.